Most people believe that the loudest person in the room is the most powerful. They believe that the more you speak, the more people respect you. They believe that success comes to those who can talk their way into every opportunity. But what if everything you believed about the power of words was completely wrong? What if the real secret to respect, authority, and success had nothing to do with how much you said and everything to do with how little? This is the story of John, a 27-year-old man who talked too much and achieved too little and lost almost everything, until one conversation with a stranger changed the direction of his entire life. Stay up till the end, because at the ending, I will give you 3 rules by which you also can become the powerful person in the room. Before we begin, drop a comment right now and tell me, what time are you watching this? And where in the world are you from? I read every single comment, everyone, and if stories like this one speak to your heart, please subscribe to EpicMind Tales. A new story arrives every single week. Now let us begin. In a busy mid-sized city where everyone was trying to climb and nobody was willing to wait, there lived a young man named John. John was 27 years old. He worked as a junior sales executive at a logistics company. He had been there for 3 years. He was smart and energetic. He was, by almost every measure, talented. But John had a problem that followed him into every room he entered. He could not stop talking, not just regular talking. John talked the way some people breathe, constantly, without thinking, without pausing, without ever asking himself whether what he was about to say was actually worth saying. In meetings, he interrupted. When colleagues were explaining something, he finished their sentences. When his manager was speaking, John was already forming his response before the man had finished his thought. He talked during lunch. He talked during breaks. He gave opinions nobody asked for. He offered advice on problems that were not his. He filled every silence with words the way some people fill empty space with furniture. Not because it was needed, but because empty space made him uncomfortable. His colleagues had a nickname for him behind his back, Radio John. He was always on, and he never noticed. John told himself a story that most talkative people tell themselves. He told himself that his talking was confidence, that his opinions showed he was engaged, that his interruptions meant he was sharp, that people who were quiet were simply people who had nothing interesting to say. He genuinely believed this, and so he kept talking. 3 years into his job, John had watched 6 of his quieter, less outspoken colleagues get promoted ahead of him. 6. He could not understand it. He worked harder than most of them. He came earlier. He stayed later. He was louder in every meeting. He volunteered for every project. He made sure everybody knew what he was doing and how well he was doing it. And still, they moved up. He stayed still. When the 7th promotion announcement came, this time for a colleague named Emma, who sat 2 desks away and had barely said 10 words in any meeting, John could remember something inside him snapped. He went straight to his manager's office. He knocked. He entered, and before his manager could even look up from his screen, John had already begun. He listed everything he had done in the past 3 years. Every project, every extra hour, every contribution. He explained why he deserved the promotion. He explained why the decision was unfair. He talked for 11 minutes without stopping. His manager, a calm man named Mr. David, who had been in the industry for 20 years, sat and listened when John finally stopped. Not because he had finished, but because he had run out of breath. Mr. David looked at him for a long moment. Then he said 4 words. "Are you done talking?" John blinked and said, "Yes, sir." Mr. David leaned back in his chair. "John, you are one of the most talented people on this floor. I have believed that since the day you joined. But talent without the ability to listen is like a very powerful engine with no steering wheel. It moves fast, but it goes nowhere useful." He paused. "The promotions go to people I trust with clients, and I cannot put you in front of a client because you will talk over them. You will answer questions before they finish asking. You will make them feel unheard, and the client who feels unheard will never come back." John opened his mouth. Mr. David raised one hand. "Do not respond right now. Go home. Think about what I just said. Really, think about it." John left the office with his face burning. He told himself, Mr. David was wrong. He told his roommate, Mr. David was wrong. He told his mother over the phone that Mr. David was wrong. But that night, lying in the dark, he heard his own voice replaying the last 3 years. Every meeting where he had interrupted someone, every lunch conversation where he had redirected the topic back to himself, every time a colleague had gone quiet when he walked in, and for the first time, in the silence of his own room, he heard what he sounded like to other people. He did not sleep that night. The next morning, John took a different route to the office. He was not sure why. He just needed to think. He needed to walk somewhere unfamiliar, so his mind could do something it almost never did. Be quiet. He passed a small tea stall tucked between 2 buildings. An old man sat behind the counter. hands wrapped around his own cup, watching the street with the calm expression of someone who had seen everything and decided most of it was interesting. Zhang sat down, ordered tea, said nothing. The old man looked at him. "You look like a man who has been talking too much," he said. Zhang laughed, despite himself. "Is it that obvious?" "Your jaw is tense," the old man said simply. "People who talk too much are always tense. They are always preparing the next thing to say. They are never just here." Zhang looked at him. "You can tell all that from my jaw. I can tell all that from 30 years of watching people," the old man said. His name, Zhang would learn, was Mr. Liu. He had retired after a long career in corporate negotiations, a man whose entire profession had depended on the strategic use of silence. "The most powerful people I ever sat across from," Mr. Liu said, stirring his tea slowly, "were not the ones who spoke the most. They were the ones who made me feel that every word they said had been chosen carefully, that they did not waste words. And because of that, when they spoke, I listened. I leaned in. I trusted them." He looked at Zhang. "Do people lean in when you speak?" Zhang was quiet. That was answer enough. Mr. Liu placed his cup down on the counter. "I will give you one challenge. You do not have to accept it. But if you do, and if you actually follow it, I promise you that 30 days from now, the way people see you will be completely different." Zhang leaned forward. "What is the challenge?" Mr. Liu looked at him steadily. "For the next 30 days, I want you to speak only when you have something that truly needs to be said. No filling silence. No unsolicited opinions. No interrupting. No talking about yourself unless someone asks. When someone is speaking, your only job is to listen fully, completely, with every part of your attention. And when you feel the urge to speak, wait, count to 5. If what you are going to say still matters after 5 seconds, say it. If it does not, let it go." He paused. "But one more rule. Every evening, write down the 3 most important things you heard that day. Not said. Heard." Zhang thought about it. It sounded almost too simple. "That is it?" he asked. Mr. Liu smiled for the first time. "That is it. But I warn you, simple is not the same as easy. You will discover on day 1 that silence is one of the hardest things a human being can practice. Your mind will scream at you to fill it. Your hands will feel useless. You will mistake quiet for weakness 100 times before you understand what it actually is. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is where power lives." Day 1 was agony. He sat in the team meeting at 4 p.m. And within the first 3 minutes, his colleague Thomas said something Zhang immediately disagreed with. He felt the words "for me." He felt his mouth begin to open. He counted to 5. The words dissolved. Someone else addressed the point, more calmly than Zhang would have, more effectively. Zhang said nothing. The meeting ended. His manager glanced at him with mild surprise, the way you look at something that has changed slightly, and you cannot yet place what is different. That night, Zhang opened a new notebook and wrote down 3 things he had heard that day. 3 things he would have talked over if he had not been quiet. One of them was a client complaint. Thomas mentioned that nobody else seemed to catch. A specific problem, a specific opportunity. Zhang wrote it down. Day 5 was worse than day 1. He was at lunch with 2 colleagues when they began discussing a project he had worked harder on than anyone. He wanted desperately to tell them. He wanted credit. He wanted to be seen. He ate his food and listened instead, and he heard something that stopped him completely. One of his colleagues said, "Zhang is actually really good at that project. He just never lets anyone else get a word in, so you stop noticing his work after a while." Zhang stared at his plate. He had never known that people thought his work was good. He had been too busy talking about his work for them to tell him. Day 8, Mr. David called him into the office. Zhang walked in and sat down. He said nothing. He waited. Mr. David looked at him differently. Something in his expression shifted. Curiosity, maybe? Or recalculation. "I wanted to check in on you," Mr. David said. "You have been different this week." "I have been listening," Zhang said, quietly, simply. Mr. David nodded slowly. "I noticed." Day 12. A client called with a complex problem nobody on the team had been able to solve. The call had been bounced from person to person. It landed on Zhang's desk by accident. The kind of accident that later looks like fate. Instead of launching into solutions, the moment the client began speaking, Zhang listened. For 7 minutes, he said almost nothing. He asked 2 questions. Then he offered 1 solution. The client paused, then said, "That is exactly it. Why did nobody else think of that?" Because nobody else had been quiet enough to hear the actual problem. Day 15. Zhang went back to the tea stall. Mr. Liu was there. Same chair, same cup, same expression of patient observation. "How's it going?" the old man asked. Zhang sat down. He thought before he spoke. "I have been hearing things I never heard before," he said. "Things people were saying directly to me that I was too busy talking to receive." Mr. Liu nodded, said nothing, "And people look at me differently." Zhang continued. "I cannot explain it exactly, but when I speak now, even just to say one thing, they pay attention. They stop what they are doing. It is like he paused, searching for the right words. Like you went from being background noise to being a signal, Mr. Leo said quietly. Yes, exactly that. Day 19. The client John that helped on day 12 called back. He specifically requested to work with John. Personally, by name, Mr. David called John into his office that afternoon. He placed a folder on the desk. There is a senior account we need someone to lead. It is a client we have been trying to retain for 2 years. They are difficult. They are demanding. They need someone who will listen to exactly what they want and stop trying to impress them. He slid the folder across the desk. I think that person is you. The new you. Day 23. John called his mother in the evening. She asked him how he was. For the first time in as long as he could remember, he said, I am well. How are you? And then he listened. For 35 minutes, his mother talked. About her garden. About a neighbor's wedding. About a small pain in her knee she had not mentioned before because John always started talking before she could get to it. He sat with the phone against his ear and felt something open inside his chest. He had missed so much of his own life, in his own family, in his own relationships, not because the words were not being spoken, but because he had never been quiet enough to hear them. Day 30. John went back to the tea stall one last time. Mr. Leo was there. John sat down. He did not say anything for a full minute. Mr. Leo waited, patient, as always. Finally, John spoke. I used to think that the more I talked, the more real I was. Like if I went quiet, I would disappear. He looked at his hands, but it was the opposite. The quieter I became, the more present I was. The more people could actually see me, not what I was performing. Mr. Leo looked at him for a long moment. What changed? The old man asked. I stopped trying to be heard, John said quietly, and people started listening. Mr. Leo nodded slowly, a small smile on his face. He said, "Is the only lesson I ever had to teach." 6 months later, John had been promoted twice. He was leading the senior account Mr. David had trusted him with. The client had not only stayed, they had expanded the contract. 3 junior colleagues now came to him for advice. He listened to every one of them fully before he said a single word. His mother called him every Sunday. He always let her speak first, and every evening without fail, he opened his notebook and wrote down the 3 most important things he had heard that day. Because somewhere along the way, John had learned the truth that most people spend their entire lives running away from. The quieter you become, the more powerful you are. Not because silence makes you mysterious, not because silence makes you superior, but because silence makes you present. And the person who is truly present, who listens when everyone else is performing, who hears what others miss, who chooses words the way a craftsman chooses tools, that person becomes the most valuable person in every room they enter. My friend, John's story is not just about talking too much. It is about you. It is about every meeting where you spoke before you thought. Every relationship where you talked over someone who needed to be heard. Every opportunity you missed because you were too busy to explaining yourself to notice it arriving. Here is the truth that most people are never told. Your words are a currency. And, like any currency, the rarer they are, the more each one is worth. When you speak constantly, your words become cheap. People stop listening. Not because what you say is unimportant, but because you have trained them not to wait for it. But when you speak carefully, when every word you release into the world has been chosen with intention, people lean in, they remember, they trust. There are 3 things I want you to take from John's story. First, silence is not a weakness. Silence is preparation. Every moment you spend listening, instead of talking, is a moment when you are gathering information, building understanding, and preparing a response that actually matters. The smartest people in every room are usually the quietest, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are collecting everything before they decide to say it. Second, listening is the rarest gift you can give another person. In a world where everyone is waiting for their turn to speak, the person who actually listens stands out completely. Your colleagues will trust you more. Your clients will stay with you longer. Your family will tell you things they tell nobody else. All because you gave them the one thing everyone needs and almost nobody receives. Your full, undivided, genuine attention. Third, your words define your identity. People do not remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel when you said it. If you speak too much, they feel overwhelmed, ignored, and talked over. If you speak with intention, they feel heard, respected, and understood. And the person who makes others feel understood becomes, without effort, the most important person in any room. So, here is your challenge. Starting tomorrow for the next 30 days, try the 3 rules that John practiced. Rule 1. Before you speak in any conversation, count to 5. If what you are about to say still matters after 5 seconds, say it. If it does not, let it go. Rule 2. In every conversation, listen to understand, not to respond. Your only job while another person is speaking is to hear them completely. Rule 3. Every evening, Write down the 3 most important things you heard that day. Do this for 30 days and come back and tell me what changed. Drop a comment right now and tell me which of the 3 rules will be hardest for you. Be honest. I will read every single one. If this story gave you something, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to EpicMind Tales because every week I bring you a story like this one. Until next time, talk less, listen more, and watch your entire world change.